Commander Jake Sullivan gripped the metal railing of the bridge as warning lights flashed red across every console. The view screen showed something that made his blood run cold. Hundreds of alien ships hung in space above Earth like deadly silver knives. Each one was bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Sir, we're getting a transmission from Luna Base," said Lieutenant Pete Morgan, his voice shaking. "Admiral Carter wants to speak with you right away." Jake pressed the communication button. Admiral Lisa Carter's face appeared on the small screen. Her gray hair was pulled back tight and her blue eyes looked tired. She had been fighting bureaucrats on Earth for 20 years to build better defenses. Now those same people who called her paranoid were probably wishing they had listened. "Jake, we've got a problem bigger than anything we've faced before," Lisa said. "These ships belong to something called the Galactic Council. They've been watching us for decades." The main screen changed to show the alien fleet in detail. The ships were smooth and white like polished bone. They had no visible weapons, but Jake knew that meant nothing. Advanced civilizations probably kept their guns hidden. "How many ships are we looking at?" Jake asked. "Over 300 in the first wave. Our computers say there are more jumping in every hour. Intel suggests they have enough firepower to turn Earth into space dust in about 10 minutes. Jake felt his stomach drop. Earth's entire defense fleet had maybe 50 ships that could actually fight. Most of those were old patrol boats with upgraded weapons. Against an alien armada, they would last about as long as paper planes in a hurricane. "What do they want?" he asked. Lisa's expression got darker. "They sent us a message. Let me play it for you." The screen filled with an alien face that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird. Its skin was pale blue and covered in small scales. Yellow eyes stared out without blinking. When it spoke, the translation software made its voice sound flat and emotionless. "Primitive humans of the third planet, you have been observed and judged by the Galactic Council. Your species shows dangerous tendencies toward chaos and unpredictable behavior. You create weapons of mass destruction and fight endless wars among yourselves. You expand too quickly and adapt too fast." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. These aliens were calling humans dangerous while sitting above Earth with enough ships to destroy everything. The alien continued speaking. "The Council has decided that humanity represents a threat to galactic peace and order. You have 36 standard hours to disarm all military vessels and surrender control of your planet to Council oversight. If you refuse, your species will be eliminated for the greater good of the galaxy." The transmission ended. Jake stared at the blank screen for several seconds. Around him, the bridge crew sat in shocked silence. Finally, someone whispered a curse word that perfectly captured what everyone was thinking. "They can't be serious," said Lieutenant Morgan. "They're going to wipe out 7 billion people because we're too chaotic?" Lisa's voice came through the speaker. "I'm afraid they are serious, Pete. Our xenobiology teams have been studying this for the past few hours. Dr. Ben Rodriguez thinks these aliens have conquered hundreds of worlds using the same basic approach. They show up, demand surrender, and destroy anyone who refuses." Jake walked over to the navigation console and looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed Council ships spreading out around Earth in a perfect sphere. They were positioning themselves to attack from every angle at once. No escape routes, no blind spots. These aliens knew what they were doing. "Admiral, what are our orders?" Jake asked. "Earth Defense Command is meeting right now. President Walsh is trying to buy us more time through diplomatic channels. General Hayes wants every ship ready for combat just in case." "Just in case." Jake almost laughed. There was no just in case about this. The aliens had made their choice. They were going to attack whether Earth surrendered or not. Bullies always attacked. It was what they did. "Jake, there's something else," Lisa said quietly. "We've been picking up strange energy readings from the deep space monitoring stations, the ones that Dr. Morrison built 10 years ago." Jake remembered Kate Morrison. She was a brilliant engineer who had convinced the government to build a network of sensors throughout the solar system. Officially, they were for tracking asteroids and monitoring solar radiation. But Jake had always suspected there was more to it. "What kind of energy readings?" he asked. "The kind that suggests those monitoring stations aren't just monitoring anything." Kate's been very quiet about what exactly she built out there, but right now, Those stations are powering up for something big. A new alarm started beeping. Lieutenant Morgan checked his console and looked up with wide eyes. Sir, we're detecting more council ships jumping in. The computer estimates their fleet size has doubled. Jake nodded. The aliens were bringing everything they had. They wanted to make sure Earth couldn't fight back. But they were making a mistake. They thought humans were just another primitive species that would panic and surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They were wrong. Humans didn't work that way. When someone threatened their home, humans didn't surrender, they got angry. And angry humans were the most dangerous thing in the universe. Pete, send a message to all Earth defense ships, Jake said. Tell them to prepare for combat operations. Full weapons load, all systems online. Sir, shouldn't we wait for official orders? Jake looked at the alien fleet on the main screen. 300 ships and growing, each one capable of destroying cities. All of them pointed at Earth like loaded guns. The orders are going to be the same no matter what the politicians decide, he said. We're going to fight. Because that's what humans do. Outside the viewport, Earth hung blue and beautiful against the black of space. 7 billion people lived down there. Children playing in parks, families eating dinner together, students studying for exams, people falling in love and making plans for the future. The Galactic Council thought they could just erase all of that because humans were too unpredictable. They were about to learn exactly how unpredictable humans could be when someone threatened everything they loved. General Paul Hayes watched the tactical display in the war room as reports flooded in from across the solar system. Green dots showed human ships engaging red dots that marked Council forces. For the first time since the battle began, there were more green dots than red ones. Sir, we're getting reports from the Jupiter sector, said Colonel Nancy Webb. Captain Foster's squadron just took out an entire Council patrol group. No human losses. Paul nodded but didn't smile. They were winning individual battles, but the war was far from over. The Council had more ships coming, and Earth's forces were already running low on ammunition for their advanced weapons. What about the Mars defense grid? He asked. Online and ready. Engineer Tony Wells says his modifications are working better than expected. The aliens keep trying to target our weapons platforms, but they can't lock onto them. Tony Wells stood in the control room of Mars Defense Station 1, watching alien ships fly past the massive gun batteries that should have been obvious targets. But the Council scanners couldn't see them. Tony had spent 5 years studying captured alien sensors, learning exactly how they detected enemy weapons. Then he had built human weapons that were invisible to those same sensors. It's all about the energy signature, he explained to his assistant, Lieutenant Carol Price. Their scanners look for specific power patterns. Our guns use completely different technology, so they show up as background radiation. On his screen, another Council ship exploded as it flew directly into a weapons platform it couldn't detect. The aliens were getting frustrated. Their tactical computers kept telling them there were no human weapons in the area, right up until those weapons started shooting. Captain Amy Foster led her fighters in a complex attack pattern around a Council battleship. The massive alien vessel was 10 times bigger than her fighter, but it couldn't hit her. Its weapons were designed to target ships that flew in straight lines and predictable formations. Amy's pilots flew like they were dancing, twisting and spinning through space in ways that made alien targeting computers crash. Blue Leader, you've got 2 fighters on your tail, warned Captain Rick Bell. I see them, Amy replied. She rolled her fighter upside down and dove toward the battleship's hull. The Council fighters followed, firing energy blasts that lit up the space around her. But Amy knew something they didn't. She had studied the battleship's design for weeks. At the last second, she pulled up and flew along the ship's surface. The 2 alien fighters tried to follow but crashed into the battleship's defensive shields. The shields were designed to keep enemies away from the hull, but they couldn't tell the difference between enemy fighters and friendly ones. Nice flying, Rick said. Where did you learn to do that? Video games, Amy answered. Turns out all those hours playing flight simulators actually taught me something useful. Dr. Kate Morrison's voice suddenly echoed through every human communication system in the solar system. Her words were calm, but carried the weight of years of secret preparation. All units, this is Phoenix Control. We are now at full operational status. Repeat, Phoenix Control is fully operational. High Counselor Zethkalar heard the transmission on his flagship. He had been wondering what Phoenix Control meant. Now he was about to find out. Deep space monitoring stations that had been silent for years suddenly came online all at once. But they weren't monitoring anything, they were broadcasting. Powerful transmissions reached out across the galaxy, carrying messages in hundreds of different alien languages. Dr. Ben Rodriguez sat in his communications center, coordinating the largest intelligence operation in human history. For 20 years, Earth had been listening to alien radio traffic. They had learned the languages of dozens of species. They had mapped trade routes, military bases, and political structures across half the galaxy. "Ben, we're ready to transmit," said Dr. Kate Morrison from her control room deep underground. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure," Ben replied. "The galaxy needs to know the truth about the Council." The transmission began. Every species in the galaxy suddenly received detailed information about Council activities that had been hidden for centuries. Slave labor camps on mining worlds, entire civilizations wiped out for refusing to surrender, planets stripped of resources and left to die. But most importantly, they learned about the rebellion. Earth wasn't just fighting for its own survival. Humans had been secretly contacting conquered species for years, building networks of resistance, fighters across the galaxy. The Council thought they were facing one primitive planet. They were actually facing a galaxy-wide uprising. Commander Jake Sullivan received new orders as his ship approached the asteroid belt. Instead of defending Earth, he was now part of something much bigger. Operation Payback was about to begin. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the asteroid field," reported Lieutenant Pete Morgan. "It looks like there are ships hiding in there." Jake smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Not hiding, Pete. Waiting." The asteroid belt suddenly came alive with human ships. Not the patrol boats and destroyers that Earth was supposed to have, but massive battleships and carriers that had been built in secret over the past decade. While the Council had been watching Earth's official military, humans had been constructing a shadow fleet in the rocks and ice of the outer system. Captain Frank Miller commanded the lead battleship of the secret fleet. His ship was bigger than anything Earth had ever built, powered by fusion reactors that burned hotter than the surface of the sun. Its weapons were based on technology stolen from a dozen different alien civilizations and improved by human engineers. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter." Lisa's voice came through the communication system. "You are now part of the largest military operation in human history. Our mission is simple. We're going to end the Council's reign of terror once and for all." The Shadow Fleet moved toward the inner system, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Behind them, automated factories in the asteroid belt continued building more ships. Earth had been preparing for this war for longer than anyone realized. High Counselor Zethkalar watched his tactical display as new human ships appeared on his sensors. Dozens of them, then hundreds. His science officer's voice was barely a whisper when she gave her report. "Sir, we're detecting over 400 human vessels. They appear to be military grade, possibly more advanced than our own ships." For the first time in his 1,000-year life, Zethkalar felt real fear. The humans hadn't just been defending their homeworld. They had been preparing to take the war directly to the Council. And from the intercepted transmissions his intelligence officers were reporting, half the galaxy was about to join them. The Council had started this war to eliminate a threat to their power. Instead, they had awakened something that would destroy them completely. The age of the Galactic Council was ending, and humanity was just getting started. The attack came 3 hours early. Captain Danny Clark was drinking coffee in the command center of Station Alpha when the first energy beam sliced through the outer hull like a hot knife through butter. Red lights flashed everywhere as oxygen rushed out through the massive hole in the station's side. "All hands to emergency stations," Danny shouted into his communicator as he ran toward the escape pods. "This is not a drill. The Council ships are firing." Across the solar system, Earth's defense network crumbled in minutes. The aliens had weapons that turned solid metal into glowing gas. Orbital platforms that had taken years to build vanished in bright flashes of light. Defense satellites became clouds of twisted debris drifting in space. High Counselor Zeth Kalar watched the destruction from his command ship. His yellow eyes showed no emotion as human defenses died one by one. This was how it always went. Primitive species built their little weapons and thought they were safe. Then the Council showed them what real power looked like. "Status report," he said to his tactical officer. "Outer defense grid eliminated. Human casualties estimated at 12,000. Their remaining ships are retreating toward their home planet." Zeth Kalar nodded. Everything was proceeding exactly as predicted. The humans would surrender within hours. Their leaders would beg for mercy. Then the Council would decide which ones deserved to live as slaves and which ones needed to be eliminated completely. But something was wrong. The human communication networks should have been screaming with panic messages. Instead, they were strangely quiet. Too quiet. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the war room deep beneath Luna Base. Around her, dozens of officers worked at computer screens showing the battle in real time. The numbers looked terrible. Earth had lost 60% of its outer defenses in the first 10 minutes. But Lisa wasn't panicking. She had been preparing for this day for 20 years. Every defense platform that the aliens destroyed had been expected to die. They were decoys. Expensive decoys, but still just decoys. "Ma'am, we're getting reports from Captain Clark," said Major Kevin Brown. "Station Alpha is gone, but he got most of his people out." "Good. What about the inner defense grid?" "Still hidden. The aliens haven't detected our real weapons yet." Lisa smiled grimly. The Council thought they were fighting Earth's actual military. They had no idea that everything they had destroyed so far was just the opening act. Lieutenant Commander Steve Park coordinated the evacuation of the lunar colonies from his command post near the South Pole. Families crowded into transport ships, while Council fighters swept overhead looking for targets. The aliens seemed to enjoy hunting civilians. It made Steve's job harder but also made him angrier. "Transport 7, you have 2 Council fighters closing on your position," he said into his headset. "Change course to heading 270 and increase speed." "Copy that, Control. We see them." Steve watched on his screen as the transport ship dove toward the lunar surface. The Council fighters followed, their energy weapons lighting up the dark side of the moon. But the transport vanished into a crater that the aliens didn't know was actually the entrance to an underground hangar. "Transport 7 is secure," Steve reported. "Loading next group of evacuees." One of his technicians looked up from her console. "Sir, we're picking up some strange transmissions from Earth. Someone is broadcasting on military frequencies." Steve switched his headset to the command channel. A woman's voice came through clearly despite the background noise of battle. "This is Admiral Carter to all Council forces. You have just made the biggest mistake in Galactic history." High Counselor Zeth Kalar heard the transmission on his own ship. He almost laughed. Humans always made threats when they were losing. It was one of their most predictable behaviors. "Send a response," he told his communications officer. "Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally." But before the message could be sent, something impossible happened. Human ships appeared out of nowhere. Not the primitive vessels the Council had been fighting, but sleek black fighters that moved like they were alive. They came from every direction at once, attacking with weapons that shouldn't have existed. Captain Amy Foster led the first wave of Earth's real defense force. Her fighter was built using technology that the aliens had never seen before. Human. Engineers had spent decades studying every piece of alien equipment they could get their hands on. Then they had done something that no other species in the galaxy had ever tried. They had improved on it. "Fox Squadron. Engage at will," Amy said, into her radio. "Show these aliens what happens when they mess with Earth." Her wingman, Captain Rick Bell, fired the first shot. His energy cannon hit a Council ship dead center. The alien vessel didn't just explode, it folded in on itself like someone had crumpled it into a ball. "What the hell was that?" Rick asked. "Something Dr. Morrison cooked up in her lab," Amy replied. "She calls it a gravity torpedo. Physics says it shouldn't work, but then again, physics never met human engineers." The Council ships tried to return fire, but the human fighters were too fast. They moved in patterns that made no sense to alien tactical computers. The Council had fought thousands of battles against hundreds of species. They had never seen anything like this. Dr. Ben Rodriguez watched the battle from his bunker in Switzerland. He had been monitoring alien communications for years, learning their language and studying their tactics. Now he was listening to something he had never heard before in all his years of research: fear. The Council ships were panicking. Their perfect formations were breaking apart. Ship captains were asking for orders that their commanders couldn't give because they had never faced this situation before. "Admiral Carter," Ben said into his radio. "The aliens are requesting reinforcements. They're calling this a Priority 1 emergency." Lisa's voice came back immediately. "How long before their backup arrives?" "At least 6 hours, probably more." They weren't expecting a real fight. High Counselor Zethkalar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet was losing, actually losing to a species that wasn't supposed to have advanced weapons. Half his ships were either destroyed or damaged. The rest were falling back in confusion. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence said these humans were primitives." His science officer's voice shook when she answered, "Sir, their technology appears to be a hybrid of multiple advanced civilizations. They've taken equipment from dozens of different species and combined it in ways that shouldn't work." Zethkalar felt something he had never experienced before in thousands of years of conquest: doubt. The humans weren't fighting like any other species the Council had encountered. They weren't following predictable patterns or using standard tactics. They were doing something completely different, something chaotic and unpredictable and absolutely terrifying. Captain Amy Foster's voice echoed across all frequencies as her fighters pressed their attack. "Council ships, this is Earth Defense Command. You came here to destroy our home. Now you're going to learn why that was a very bad idea." Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation as the massive human fleet prepared to leave the solar system. Around her, the largest armada in Earth's history moved through space like a pack of wolves heading for the hunt. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and behind moons now revealed themselves in their full deadly glory. "Ma'am, we're receiving confirmation from all fleet commanders," reported Captain Sandra Lee from the communications station. 237 ships ready for jump to the Kepler system." Lisa nodded. The Kepler system was the Council's forward staging area, where they had been gathering reinforcements for their second wave against Earth. Intelligence reports suggested over 500 Council ships were waiting there. It was going to be the biggest space battle in galactic history. "Signal all ships. Operation Payback begins now." The human fleet jumped to hyperspace in perfect formation. Behind them, Earth's automated factories continued building more ships. The planet that the Council had tried to destroy was now pumping out warships faster than any civilization in galactic history. High Counselor Zethkalar paced on the bridge of his flagship in the Kepler system. Reports from Earth made no sense. His invasion force had been designed to conquer a primitive world in hours. Instead, they had been fighting for 3 days and losing ground every hour. "Sir, we're detecting hyperspace signatures," announced his sensor officer. "Multiple contacts jumping in at the edge of the system." Zethkalar turned to look at the main display. What he saw made his yellow eyes go wide with shock. Hundreds of human ships were appearing out of hyperspace in attack formation. They weren't running away from the Council fleet. They were bringing the fight directly to the enemy. "Impossible," he whispered. "How do they have so many ships?" Captain Frank Miller commanded the lead human battleship as it dropped out of hyperspace. His ship was 3 times larger than the biggest Council vessel and armed with weapons that could crack planets. Around him, the human fleet spread out in a formation that looked like chaos, but was actually carefully planned. "All weapons online," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Gary Stone. "Enemy fleet is moving to intercept. We count 487 Council ships." Frank smiled. The Council still outnumbered them 2-1, but numbers weren't everything. Human ships had been built specifically to fight Council technology. Every weapon, every shield, every system had been designed to exploit weaknesses that the aliens didn't even know they had. "Signal the fleet," Attack Pattern Delta. Let's show these aliens what happens when they threaten our home. The space battle that followed would be remembered for thousands of years. Human ships moved through the Council fleet like sharks among fish. Their weapons cut through alien shields like they weren't even there. Their armor absorbed energy blasts that should have destroyed them completely. Colonel Rick Adams led a squadron of human fighters against the Council's fighter screen. His pilots flew in formations that looked suicidal, but were actually based on mathematical principles that alien tactical computers couldn't understand. They twisted through space in patterns that seemed random, but were designed to exploit specifics, weaknesses in Council targeting systems. Red Squadron, break left and engage those fighters near the gas giant, Rick ordered. Blue Squadron, follow me. We're going after their command ship. The Council fighters tried to respond, but they were trained to fight enemies who followed predictable patterns. Human pilots treated every rule of space combat like a suggestion that could be ignored if it got in the way of winning. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the real revolution was just beginning. On the mining world of Zerion Prime, human agent Captain Lucy Turner activated sleeper cells that had been waiting for years. Alien workers who had been slaves for generations suddenly had weapons and hope. "This is Turner to all resistance cells," she broadcast on hidden frequencies. "Phoenix Protocol is active. The Council fleet is under attack. It's time to take back your worlds." Similar uprisings began on dozens of planets simultaneously. The Council had spent centuries building an empire based on fear and overwhelming force. They had never considered what would happen if their conquered subjects coordinated their rebellions. Dr. Ben Rodriguez monitored the intelligence networks from his command center on Earth. Information flowed in from agents across the galaxy, painting a picture of an empire in collapse. Council garrison forces were being overwhelmed on world after world as species that had been enslaved for generations finally fought back. "Kate, you need to see this," he called to Dr. Morrison. "We're getting reports of successful uprisings on over 30 worlds. The Altarian system just declared independence. The mining colonies in the Vega sector have driven out their Council overseers." Kate looked at the tactical display showing the spreading rebellion. Red dots marked Council-controlled systems. Green dots showed worlds that had joined the human-led resistance. The map was changing in real time as more and more systems switched sides. "How long before the Council realizes they're fighting a galaxy-wide war instead of just invading Earth?" she asked. "From these communication intercepts, I'd say they already know. Their military commanders are requesting emergency reinforcements from every sector. They're pulling ships away from conquered worlds to deal with the rebellions." Back in the Kepler system, the space battle was turning into a rout. Council ships that had seemed invincible hours before were now fleeing in disorder. High Counselor Zethkalar watched his fleet dissolve around him as human weapons turned his finest warships into glowing debris. "Sir, we're receiving surrender. Request from 18 of our ships," reported his communications officer. "The Eternal Victory just lost main power. The Cosmic Enforcer is venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches." Zethkalar stared at the tactical display. In all his centuries of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't just defeating Council forces. They were destroying them so completely that experienced ship captains were abandoning battles they should have been able to win. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcement from the core worlds. All available ships." But even as he gave the order, Zethkalar knew it was probably too late. The humans had turned a simple planetary invasion into a galactic civil war. Worse, they were winning. Commander Jake Sullivan led his ship through the wreckage of a Council destroyer. Around him, human fighters hunted down the surviving alien vessels like wolves chasing scattered sheep. The Council's perfect formation had collapsed into chaos. "Sir, we're getting reports from Admiral Carter," said Lieutenant Pete Morgan. "The main Council fleet is in full retreat. We've captured or destroyed over 300 enemy ships." Jake looked at the tactical display. The red dots representing Council forces were scattered across the system, most of them moving away from the battle at maximum speed. The invasion of Earth had become the Council's worst military defeat in recorded history. "Set course for the GUI core worlds," Jake ordered. "This war isn't over yet. We're going to finish what the Council started." The human fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of Operation Payback. They had defended their home and broken the Council's invasion force. Now it was time to carry the war to the enemy's doorstep and end their reign of terror once and for all. The Battle of the Core Worlds began at dawn on the third day of the Galactic Uprising. Admiral Lisa Carter watched from the bridge of the UES Liberation as the combined human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Centauri Prime, the Council's capital, world. 300 human warships faced the last stronghold of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. "Ma'am, we're detecting massive defensive installations around the planet," reported Captain Sandra Lee. "Energy shields, orbital weapons platforms, and at least 200 Council ships in defensive formation." Lisa studied the tactical display. The Council had pulled back their surviving forces to make a final stand at their home world. It was exactly what human strategists had predicted they would do. Desperate enemies always retreated to familiar ground. "Signal all ships. Begin attack pattern Omega. Today we end this war." High Counselor Zeth Kalar stood in the command center beneath Centauri Prime's surface. Around him, Council military leaders argued in panic as reports came in from across their crumbling empire. Rebellion had spread to every sector. Entire fleets had defected to join the human cause. The great empire was dying. "Sir, the human fleet is moving into attack position," announced General Vextar, his voice shaking. "Our orbital defenses are powering up, but their ships are using some kind of advanced shielding technology." Zethkalar watched the display screen as human ships advanced through the Council's defensive fire. Energy beams that should have destroyed the enemy vessels simply bounced off their hulls. The humans had learned to build armor that actually got stronger when it was attacked. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy." "Not anymore," said Dr. Kethron, the Council's chief scientist. "The humans have combined technologies from dozens of different species. They've created weapons and defenses that we've never seen before." Captain Danny Clark led the assault on the Council's primary orbital shipyard. His squadron of heavy fighters swooped between the massive construction platforms, their weapons cutting through support structures like hot knives through ice. The shipyard had been building Council warships for centuries. Now it was about to become the largest fireworks display in galactic history. "Charlie Squadron, target the main power coupling," Danny ordered. "Delta Squadron, take out those defensive turrets." The shipyard exploded in a chain reaction that lit up the entire system. Centuries of Council military power vanished in a few spectacular seconds. The message was clear. The age of Council dominance was over. Commander Jake Sullivan piloted his fighter toward the Council's flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive ship was over 5 kilometers long and armed with enough weapons to destroy entire fleets. But Jake had studied its design for months. He knew exactly where to hit it. "All fighters, this is Sullivan. I'm going after their command ship. Cover me." Jake dove toward the flagship's hull, dodging energy blasts from dozens of defensive weapons. The Council gunners couldn't track his erratic flight pattern. Human pilots had learned to fly like they were insane, because sanity was predictable, and predictable fighters were dead fighters. He reached the ship's main reactor section and fired his gravity torpedo directly into the primary power core. The weapon punched through the hull and exploded inside the reactor chamber. The Eternal Dominion, symbol of Council power for thousands of years, folded in on itself and disappeared in a flash of twisted spacetime. High Counselor Zethkalar felt the shockwave from his flagship's destruction, even through the planet's shields. The most powerful warship in Council history had been destroyed by a single human fighter. It was impossible, but it had happened anyway. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet," said his communications officer. "Put it through." "Admiral." Lisa Carter's face appeared on the main screen. Her expression was calm but determined. Behind her, Jake could see the bridge of a human warship filled with officers from dozens of different species. The rebellion had become something bigger than just humans fighting the Council. "High Counselor Zethkalar, this is Admiral Carter of the Galactic Liberation Fleet. Your empire is finished, your fleets are destroyed. Your subject worlds have joined us. Surrender now and you can live to see the new galaxy we're going to build." Zethkalar laughed bitterly. You think you can rule the galaxy better than we have? You're nothing but chaotic primitives. Without the Council's guidance, the galaxy will tear itself apart. We're not going to rule the galaxy, Lisa replied. We're going to set it free. The surrender came not from military defeat, but from something the Council had never experienced. Their own people turned against them. Captain Amy Foster had been broadcasting the truth about Council atrocities across every world in their empire. The evidence was overwhelming. Entire species wiped out for refusing to surrender. Slave labor camps hidden on remote worlds. Resources stolen from conquered planets while their populations starved. Dr. Kate Morrison stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly on the neutral world of Haven Station. Representatives from over 200 species filled the Great Hall. For the first time in galactic history, every species had an equal voice in their government. The old empire is dead, she announced. Today we begin building something new. A federation based on cooperation instead of conquest. A government that serves all species, not just the powerful ones. The transformation wasn't just political, it was cultural. Human ideas about innovation and creative problem-solving spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been stagnant under Council rule suddenly began developing new technologies and exploring new ideas. Engineer Tony Wells led the technological renaissance that followed the war. His teams combined human creativity with alien knowledge to produce innovations that neither could have achieved alone. Faster ships, better weapons, more efficient power sources. The galaxy was advancing faster than it had in centuries. General Paul Hayes oversaw the establishment of the new peacekeeping force. Instead of the Council's rigid hierarchy, the Galactic Defense Force valued diversity and adaptability. Captain Rick Bell became the first human to command a mixed-species crew, proving that cooperation was more effective than domination. High Counselor Zeth Kalar spent his final years in comfortable exile on a remote farming world. He watched news, broadcasts showing the galaxy's rapid progress under the new Federation. Species that had been enemies for millennia were now working together. Technology advanced at an incredible pace. Art and culture flourished. He finally understood what the humans had been trying to tell him. Chaos wasn't something to be feared and controlled. It was the source of creativity and growth. The Council had brought order to the galaxy by crushing everything that made life worth living. Humans had brought freedom by showing everyone that being different wasn't a weakness. The war had lasted less than a year, but its effects would echo through the galaxy for thousands of years to come. The Galactic Council had struck first, believing they were eliminating a minor threat to their perfect order. Instead, they had awakened a force that would reshape civilization itself. In the end, humanity had proven the most important lesson in the universe. When someone threatens everything you love, you don't surrender, you fight back. And if you're human, you fight back so hard that the entire galaxy changes forever. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of freedom had begun.